Welcome to this episode of TCT Talks. Today's conversation is for every fresh graduate, young professional, and student who's standing at the confusing but exciting point in life where one question keeps coming back: what do I do next? Some of you may be looking for your first job. Some of you may be wondering whether your degree is enough. Some may be thinking of a startup but are afraid to take the first step. And many of you may be asking a very honest question: how do I become future ready when the future itself is changing so fast? To help us answer these questions, we have with us Dr. Jaya Mishra, an education leader, university administrator, researcher, and entrepreneurial ecosystem builder. She has spent more than 2 decades in higher education, building institutions, mentoring young minds, strengthening industry academia partnerships, and helping create startup and innovation ecosystems. She is currently the president of Sri Gangajali Education Society and director of Sri Shankaracharya Business Incubator Foundation. Her work spans skill development, graduate employability, startup incubation, research, technology, policy, and women leadership. But we will not talk just about her achievements or how she got here, but we'll speak about her journey, the choices, the doubts, the lessons, and the moments that shaped her. Because young people do not only need advice, they get enough of it on social media. They need real stories that matter. They need to know that careers are not always straight lines. They need to understand that employability is not just about marks or certificates, but about attitude, adaptability, curiosity, communication, discipline, and overall courage. Dr. Mishra, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Nalin. It is equally a great pleasure to be with you here. I hope I'll be able to answer all your questions with the equal zeal you have been telling about me. Thank you.
Sometimes, I realize that the person that I'm interviewing is way more qualified than I can ever be. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. But Jayaji, uh, what was your early journey like? How did you get here? So when people meet each other, we always see where we are.
Yes.
Nobody really understands how we got here. How did
Yes.
you get here?
So it's a very funny story. I would say I became lucky, I would say. So I came here for my studies. I was also an early parent. I was given this role because society is also run by my father-in-law, who is the chairman of the society. So, like, this is when I say I became lucky. I became lucky because with no prior experience in the field, I was in the field, in the position, and in the position of guiding the people who were way more qualified, way more educated, than me. So I would say it was equally challenging to guide somebody who knows maybe more than you, right? So initially, while I was in the position, my 6 months were only done. I was just studying my colleagues, I was just studying how the directors and principals perform. And also, since I was a student, I always have a very inquisitive nature that I used to read people. So it became quite easy for me. And then, out of nowhere, one day I realized that I know a lot of things. Why? Because I observed everything around me. So, and I was here in the game, and I kept on performing. And, when you see power, when you get a position, person matures faster, right? Because with power, it's not that you only get that administrative things and everything, you also get a lot of responsibility. So whenever you see your colleague, you always know that you are in a position wherein you can uh, either make them or break them, right? So you should know that how you're using your powers. So it's very interesting for me to handle this role, to do my job, to give guidance to people around me, around students, faculties, and lot of courses. There was also a lot of courses. So I basically am an engineer. I've done my master's, I've done my PhD in electronics and telecommunication, but there are multiple fields which we deal with, right? Pharmacy, now medical schools as well, medical colleges, MBA, MCA, and everything you name it. So it was also a kind of exposure for me. So I learned while I was in the game, and that is how it is.
I'll pick on a couple of words that you mentioned. Nowadays, I go to a lot of university campuses. I've been to hundreds across the world.
Yes.
Often I find students very obsessed about that perfect opportunity. I want this and this only, etc. Whereas what you said, luck plays such a big part of how
Yes.
your life will be shaped. Uh,
Yes.
what do you advise students on that?
So I would say, see, you won't get what you desire every time, right? But then this one thought I always had, that I am not going to give up. This is one very core, personality trait in me, and I'm very adaptive with the situation. And I always tell everybody I meet that there is no work as small work. There's no work as big work, or there's nothing as small and big, large and small. It's just you have to keep on performing, because your karma plays a greater role in your life. You, and also, like, we have got 24 hours in a day, right? There is something you can always, whatever you are interested in, I think you can find that time. If you're interested in something, you can always learn. You can always give yourself that 2 hours in a day, 3 hours in a day, that keeps you motivated. So when you say that you want this in life, you can always keep on experimenting. And suppose you don't get that thing, there's nothing to get depressed. There's nothing, because I life always gives you chances, and I thoroughly believe that if God closes one door, there will be 10 doors which will open. And this is not just a saying. I've seen this in my life. I've seen in every area. I've seen, if I am, there are some days wherein even I'm not motivated. I would not want to get up from my bed. But then get up. I really get up. I put on a lipstick, I put on a kajal, and I am there in the field. Why? Why? Because I know that I have so many people who are looking upon me, who are seeing me as a figure. For them, this is something, a small piece of strength which you give them. When they say, "Hara wahi jo lada nahi," right? This is a very good quote which I keep on hearing. There are a lot of movies which, so I pick small things. I get motivated with small, like there was this, I was doing a puja. I was there amidst my, maybe I was not that motivated that day. So I was seeing, and I was sitting, and there was this ant who was trying to pick that small sugar piece. And then, since it was not that, the ant was not big, so the ant literally went inside and called four ants with her to pick that cube. Like, everybody has seen this example. But
Yeah.
then at that moment, while I was depressed, I saw that, if I'm not able to pick up myself on my own, I have four people, who I can discuss with, who I can actually share and tell, and then I'm all good again. So I think you can always have that positive attitude.
You touched upon some interesting skills which I'll come back to, like resilience, the
Yes.
ability to persevere. But
Hmm.
if I go back
Hmm.
and just take up another thing that you mentioned, was
Hmm.
that you observe a lot, right?
I observe a
Now,
lot.
in today's world where people's heads are down on their phone all the time,
Hmm.
uh, how do you teach people that observing? How do you teach people to observe, or is it just inborn?
No, it comes with, when God gives you situations, is then you should keep your mind open. One thing I really am grateful to God is that I am adaptive. And this is when I say you should never give up. Why I am focusing on never give up? Why? Because people often tend to give up. They think the situation is really hard to pick up, and they will, let's not go that side. I choose to be on my comfort zone, and I'm not going to progress in this field. I'm going to choose that. So I would say excel in that field, and then choose on your own terms. I never, an observation is something, it is also inborn, but I also tell people, just keep on looking around. You have to learn things from everybody, because everybody has something special. Like, Nalin, I was seeing your profile, very, very, very vast. And then that curiosity has to be there. So you remain curious, you learn, and when you learn, you, of course, the observation comes. So it is all your
But
everyday life, how you see it.
just on that, when we were speaking about You should keep yourself open to various options and be adaptable, etc. Is today's education system, we've got marks, pressure, all of that is there, but
Hmm.
shouldn't the ultimate goal in these very fast changing times be to give learners the confidence that, look, your time with us, apart from the marks and all that, was only
Hmm.
to give you a framework for learnability. Now go
Hmm.
adopt it to any other field of life and be a continuous learner. Do you
Hmm.
think that approach is a more progressive approach today, a
Of course,
relevant one?
and also we are at the age where is no student is without knowledge. They come to us with a certain set of knowledge, right? Courtesy social media, everything is so easily available. The child start learning at the age of 3, 4, 5, 6, and like we frame their education and their mindset. So I also think, I think I'm writing a research paper on this. Like, there is this ancient system, jahan Nalanda and Takshila जैसी universities होती थी, where you used to teach them life skills. You used to make them practical to how to live their life. You used to teach them war skills. And only this colonial system of education came quite late when the industrialization came into picture. You wanted to create certain human beings for different kinds of work, and that is how our education system is now built up. So I really think, in this era, we cannot just be that, that straightforward. Ki, you have to study this. You have to. This is your area of excellence. This is because everything is massively available on internet, and these two students are exposed to technologies, very exposed to a different kind of information. So when we teach here in Shankaracharya, I really do not believe that only the educational, the textbook knowledge is essential or enough for them. I always tell them, you have to have this information which will help you as in technology, as in skill for life, so that you should not get afraid that you will not be somebody who is not able to earn it, learn it, and then do whatever you want in life. That job, that skill has to align with your ambitions, with your skill, with your intellect. So it has to be a overall development, overall, that holistic approach is what today's need is. You can't just let them know that this is what it is. And also with the new education policy, I think they are working on the same grounds. They have made multiple courses, like we can pursue 2, 3 degrees together. There is this like diploma system. If you want to quit some course and you want to join something else, that diploma will be there. So our education system is also falling in place with the recent times and studies.
The challenges that university owners face today is
Hmm.
immense.
Hmm.
Just to frame one thing from my side, and I want to know what your thoughts are. University owners, more or less, not always, set up institutions where they got land, taught
Yes.
taught what they had curriculum for or faculty for,
Hmm.
and then took students based on some criteria, more or less of those who could pay or those who qualified in some way. But now you are being asked to be an employment exchange or a startup incubator. People don't come for the sake of, I'm coming to a temple of knowledge to acquire knowledge. There seems to be an implicit understanding. I pay you fee, you give me degree, I get a job. Or the government says now create entrepreneurs. How do you balance these various narratives?
So the easiest way is we keep on organizing a lot of events where there's a lot of knowledge sharing. We would keep a lecture of somebody who has an experience of everything, who also has an experience of failure, because failure always has a feedback, right? That feedback is important. So once you share your journey, I would not say you should always share a successful journey. You should also share some people who has actually failed in life. And then failure is equally important. The next thing is how easily you have recovered, right? So these kinds of event keeps on happening. Then we do a lot of conferences as well, wherein this training is being given to them. Then what is the basic structure of startup, and how and why you should focus on certain products. If you suppose you dream of a 20 crore startup, you should know that this 20 crore startup or this amount is not going to reach mass. if you think of 200, 2000 crore, you should build a product which is being used by masses. So, these kind of discussions keep on happening in them. And also, like I said, these students, these are way more intelligent than, I used to think. There could be a lack of technical knowledge, I must say, but their perspective has enlarged a lot, seeing a lot of things happening already. And when you see things happening around you, this is also when you learn. So there are a lot of we keep on give them hands-on trainings, and we take them to a lot of industries to see. So these are few things which we keep doing it. And then lectures, of course, like the kind of exchange of information I'm doing with you here, we do in batches. We do with a lot of students. We mentor them, we tell them it is okay that we spend something. And I always say that there is a need of which still is pending. I think probably I have a dream of opening a school wherein I would actually would like to have a separate skill training, and I would like students to also have knowledge of finance and your rights related to law. These two things are must in life. You should always study finance when you are building a startup, and you should know your rights. You should have a habit of reading your documents before signing it. So a lot of things are there. So we keep on discussing. That's it.
So, recently I was at one of the IIMs, I was speaking at the convocation, and I asked a couple of questions, and I would love to know your thoughts on that. So, I asked the students, uh, you know, do you respect your educators? So, all the hands went up. Then I asked them, how many of you want to become an educator? Not a single hand went up. Then I asked the educator sitting in front, how many of you wanted to be an educator at that age? Again, not a single hand went up. I asked them, how many of you want to become an entrepreneur? Not a single hand went up. Now, there is a paradox in all this, right? How do we manage this situation where people are sitting on a campus for 2 to 4 years, listening to people they don't want to become like, and these people never wanted to be this? I'm sure there are exceptions. There's no hard and fast rule. But as a university person running an institution, this must be incredibly difficult, especially in an era where everybody has got a smartphone which is smarter than the lecturer speaking in front of them. Is it making it worse? I mean, who would want to teach in such a scenario? It's pretty difficult, right?
I have a very different analogy with what you have said, because right now, I really think that everybody is becoming an educator only. Like everybody is giving a lot of information, lot of resources to people they are interacting with. If you see, we have never seen a career which we say career gurus and then motivators and then manifestation gurus, right? So I think the era has come wherein people will actually choose to become or come to a place wherein they can do a exchange of information. Maybe a decade earlier or before, there could be something, maybe it is not such a fancy job wherein escalating on terms of money was not that high, right? But now I think the scenario has changed a lot, and this job of a teacher has glamorized and glorified a lot. So I now think that now probably if you will go and ask, they would say they might not want to teach in the university, but they would definitely want to teach, maybe separately, or I really think like somehow I haven't come across such people in my university, because my retention rate is very high. I have professors from last 20-25 years who are still with me working here. So the atmosphere is also, one of the reason. And maybe you are talking about a place which is a metro. This is a tier 2, tier 3 city. So here, this idea of
It's very
peaceful
good to
living
know.
is very prominent.
It's very good to know. And now, with foreign universities coming, probably the good educators will be in high demand. And
Yes,
it's very
definitely.
good to know. Just before I come back to educational stuff, there's an interesting phenomena I notice. The first 6 or 10 years of my life, I lived in a town called Jamshedpur. Now, when I look at towns like Jamshedpur, Rourkela, Bhilai, which have this township concept, the children of these people over the last 30, 40 years have made tremendous progress. The
Yes.
percentage of their children who have outshone, you go to America, Europe, anywhere, you ask people, high probability they come from one of these towns. Is it the township culture? Was it that they had better educational institutions, or there was just competition, or there was just the desire to break out of the small township? Where you are running an institution is pretty much that kind of place. What do you
Yes.
ascribe this to? I mean, they have had astounding success.
Yes, so I think every bit of the thing which you said, like, there is also a desire of coming out of this town or these small towns because the exposure is definitely less here, and like we would want to see world outside these towns. So this is one reason. Also, then, like I said, it is a peaceful living out here, right? There's not much of the competition, and then when there is peace around, that you have, and also there are not lot of options to do. You either have to study or arts or home. So this is also one thing. And then in these townships, if you'll see, there belongs a family who are in service, right? So there is also a set of mindset which prevails in these kids who would want to have a lot of success that prevails in them, and that is one thing I've seen in Bilai. I have, this very strange things I've seen here is like people will go out, will have a lot of exposure, will work, but they have a craving to come back to the city. And somehow, though we do not have any MNCs over here right now, but the startup ecosystem has flourished like anything because everybody who has gained that information, that knowledge from outside working abroad, with a lot of, after maybe the graduation, they would move out for post graduation and the IIMs and another prestigious institute, either foreign university, they would come back because they know they still have something to give back to society here. Here, since the exposure is less, and these kids are so much, how do I say that word? They're very thick with their land here. Thick with, and also, like, these days we see there's a little emotional bonding is less between parents and kids. Here, I've seen in small towns, there's a lot of bonding, a lot of, love for their fellow neighbors and everybody. So I think this is the thing, and everything is correct. Like, they want to rise, they want to shine, they want to move out of the city, but they also want to come back.
Yes, that's so true. But it's good that that has happened. It's very heartening to see. But just moving back to something more related to academics,
Yeah.
technology is shaping and changing every career, whether it's engineering, management, pharmacy, nursing, commerce. What does being future ready mean for today's generation? How would you tell them? How do you be future ready? 'Cause I don't envy the young people coming out today, right? They're coming out in a much more volatile world, much more. It's the pace of change that bothers, not change itself. There's so much confusion as to if I do this, will this profession even last 3 years or 5 years? So,
Yes.
what is being future ready now mean to young people?
So let me give you example of my own kids or the kids I deal with. So I really think, since in our times there were only two fields, either it has to be medical or it has to be engineering, right? But now we see a lot of careers, a lot of job openings which we never thought which will come out so gracefully, right? Probably in our times, maybe I'm using the wrong word, but we always used to think if you take commerce, you're not that great with your academics. But now if you see, commerce is flourishing on another level. So now when I say, if somebody or some student who knows that what he wants in life, probably he would know that I want to become a astronaut, I want to become a pilot, I want to become a techie, then it's fine. Probably if you do not know that what am I going to become in my life, because if I take my own example, I will say I still do not know what I want to become, right? I'm still thriving, I'm still putting all my efforts to give me that peace of mind that no, this is my right career path. So then I say is keep on experimenting, but never take your graduation easily. Take it with so much, with a lot of seriousness, because then you will have one degree. If you, again, a funny statement, if you will know that this is what I want to do, is equally important that you had to know that this is exactly not I want to do. Something knowing that I don't want to do is better than knowing what I want to do. One has to be clear. So with this confusion and a lot of career perspective, I always say do your graduation, keep your best foot forward, gather that information as much as you can, and then your first career choice doesn't have to be your final destination, right? You can keep on experimenting, and I really feel that you can keep on experimenting till 25, 26. Probably I'll be turning 44 this September. What happens if I was 46? It's okay. And I really do not believe in like set pattern of like you have to complete your education, your 12th in 17 years, your graduation in 21 years, your postgrad in 25 years. But with a mass student, I know this is a problem. But now since we all like in our times our parents used to have 4 or 5 kids. Now we all parents have either 1 or 2 kids. So all parents are in sync with their children. So, this confusion, if they are confused, they should actually take time. Do not hurry to make your career choices. Now, this is my final path. Never decide that so impulsively. I would say keep on experimenting. This is what I say, I would tell.
No,
Yes.
that's very fair advice. There are a couple of studies that have come out recently. I just wanted to know your thoughts on that. First, since 2010, and especially after the pandemic, the undergraduate and graduate enrollments across the world have been dipping. McKinsey says one third of the American universities will shut down over the next decade. So we may not yet feel it here, but I know a lot of colleges are going empty in India as well. The second, which is slightly more alarming, is that every generation, as parents, we always feel the next generation is lazier, but every generation, in every test on reading proficiency, numeric ability, etc., was smarter than the previous generation. But since 2010, Gen Z is scoring lower. First
Yes.
time. So, are we measuring the wrong things? Are they smarter in different ways, or is social media etc. generally dumb down the population? What's your take on this?
It's a very interesting thing or question you have brought because I keep on discussing this with my daughter who is in class 11th. So I would say what she does is like when she wants to, her Hindi is not that great because today's generation really find it difficult to read in Hindi, talk in Hindi. So I was just observing her. She has scored great numbers in Sanskrit and Hindi, but whenever I will give her a paragraph, she would go to Google, convert Hindi into English, then read it, then again convert into Hindi, right? And then with her maths, I was great in maths, my husband was great in maths, but then both of my kids do not like maths somehow. So, what has changed? I would say the teaching pattern has also changed a lot because since early childhood, we are, giving them a lot of comfort. And I would say the this gracing them students, we will not fail students, and a lot of we are reducing the pressure. So the kind of generation which has come up doesn't want to put themselves in a lot of pressure. They would find an easy way out to solve their problems, and maybe their analytical brain is not performing as much as we think, but their psychology, how they are seeing things, the other things are coming out great. How they are adaptive to situations. I might see things very different from the way my Gen Z students are seeing and my kids are seeing. So I might not want to ease out a situation. I will never pick a easy way out. They will always pick a easy way out somehow. They know how to, change the situation. So I really do not have a perfect answer to your question because I'm really gonna see how are
Yeah.
these kids going to
There is
be
a
in the
there is
future.
a politically appropriate educator's answer, and there is a parent's answer. Oh, they are dumber. So
Yes.
I take your answer. Fair enough. But just because you mentioned about some things and that triggered. You are also a researcher. You worked
Yeah.
IoT, sensor networks, technology applications.
Right.
How important is research thinking? Things like curiosity, problem solving, evidence based decision making for young professionals, even though they are not going into research.
So I did my master's in the year 2010. Then, for say 12 years, I did not study. Neither I was keen to study. Then, all of a sudden, something shifted, wherein I realized a lot of people are coming to me with their, with their problems, who are, expecting an answer related to technology, related to something which is deeply inspired by the technology. It is then I just thought I should do my PhD, because this title is very much glorified, Dr. Jaya Mishra. Like, whenever you see this name, people will automatically start seeing you that you are somebody who's not normal, right? Who knows a little better than a lot of people around. So when I started doing research on few things, maybe IoT or a lot of things, it actually, it felt that it is sharpening my brain. It was giving me new perspective, because whenever I'm there on the stage, I had to give a lot of speeches and whatnot. It is when I learned the art of storytelling. When you research, when you give your brain that food, your brain start functioning well. So I really think researching things had given me a lot of new perspective towards life. And I really started seeing there was a time when I people start thinking, oh, I'm 40, I don't know what else to do in life. Right now, I have started seeing like that life has given me a new path. I am on a path wherein my best career, my best version is yet to come. It is not behind, it is ahead. So I really want people to keep on, pondering upon things, and as much as you can go inside a topic, learn it, and then, very interestingly, I could have done postdoctorate, right? But I chose a new career. Why? Because I realized that, this is it. I don't want to continue a research more on this topic. I would want to go on a topic which is more related to my life, right? More related to something which is what I'm dealing with around, uh, the kind of problems people come to me with, the kind of suggestions they want from me, and just the basic life skills, the basic things which one should know. So research is, I think, is it's very important to keep your brain active and to keep yourself young.
It's interesting you say that. A lot of entrepreneurs get wedded to their first or second idea. And I ask them that with experience and age, do you think you will think better or worse? So they always say better. So if you think better, don't you think you'll get better ideas later? Why are you getting wedded to this one? So I take your point. It's very relevant. We're coming to the end, so I just have a comment and a final question for you. Leading an institution is a responsibility, right? It can get burdensome sometimes as well. Although it's a privilege and a responsibility, it does put an emotional toll on people. One, how do you deal with that? And my final question, which is just hearing you speak, you seem to have an entrepreneurial streak or a growth mindset. So the second question is, what next?
So this institute, which we have been running from, let's say, last 26, 27 years, 28 years, it has kept on growing. In between, there were a lot of challenges. In between, there were a lot of hurdles. But what kept us going was that there are people who are attached to this business, right? They have their source of income through this institute. This was one emotional thing which I would say, once you realize that you are somebody's bread and butter, through this is somebody's life is going further. So this was one thing which never let me and my father-in-law to go down. Second is we love youth. It keeps you young. They come with a lot of energy. They come with a lot of zeal to learn, and then there are staffs who are with you from last so many years. So it's like a family of first, second, and third layer. So when you are in a family, you would not want to give up ever. And also, the amount of growth which we were seeing was something which was only possible with the grace of God. So that is one thing which gave us a lot of confidence that we can not give up and we should move forward. So it's just the adaptability, it's just the faith and the love which people show and give you is what kept us going. And your second question, which is, can you
What
repeat the
next?
second question? Yeah, what next?
What next?
So, what next? As an institution or as a person?
As a person, you've done so many things and you've managed so many
So,
different careers, including with a
what
break.
yes, I've always thought about it. So I always wanted to change my career. Somehow, I don't know why I decided that when I joined as a president at the age of, say, what, 33 in this institute. I always wanted to hand over my things to my son, and then probably a new course of life which I wanted to figure out. I will say cures. Why? Because cures gives you a lot of new directions in life. Cures gives you a lot of new ideas in life, and curiosity is something which I think I can never leave. I really want myself to be curious, to completely explore what is next, and I see a lot of new things happening around the world, right? So this is a set pattern of education which needs a lot of evolution. I am sure, the younger generation which is coming will help us as an institute to evolve in a different way, because now the education policies and the education, everything is changing. So I really wanted to hand over the work to my next generation. And for next part, I really want to start from scratch and build up my career once again. Like, when you say, as in entrepreneurship, you must have seen there are people who reach from 0 to X, then leave, and then again they build 0 to X.
Uh,
So
if
I
your
would do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
if your past is anything to go by of what you have achieved and how, mark my words, your best version, like you said, best version and best career is yet to come. Your legacy of what you will do next will be created on that, and it will be
Yeah.
very rewarding. So with
Thank
that,
you.
we'll close this. But for all our watchers, and young learners, if you notice what stands out from today's conversation is that careers are not built in one dramatic moment. They are built quietly through choices, discipline, curiosity, courage, and the willingness to keep learning. Dr. Jaya Mishra's journey reminds us that education is not just about classrooms, degrees, or institutions, and it's not a formula. At its best, education is about transformation. It is about helping young people discover what they are capable of. It is about connecting knowledge with work, ideas with action, and ambition with responsibility. For fresh graduates and young professionals, the message is clear. Do not wait for the perfect opportunity. Build your readiness, learn continuously, ask better questions, find mentors, work on your communication, storytelling, understand technology, develop problem solving ability. Most importantly, take yourself seriously, but before expecting the world to take you seriously. The future will not reward only those who have degrees. It will reward those who can learn, adapt, collaborate, create, and contribute. Dr. Mishra, I cannot thank you enough for joining us and for sharing not only your experience, but also your perspective on how young people can build meaningful future ready careers. Actually, I got diverted into many other social questions because I was so interested in knowing your perspective. To our learners and listeners, I leave you with this thought. Your career is not a race against someone else. It
Yes.
is a journey of becoming useful, capable, confident, and courageous. Start where you are. Start with what you have. But please start. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Jaya Mishra.
Thank you so
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thank you.